What's going on, everybody? Plan today is going to try to get the oil pressure working on the CJ. So it had a gauge, which I don't have nearby anymore, but it had an oil pressure gauge right in here, but it didn't work, and I figured out why. But I'm just going to replace it with an electrical kind of unit here. So just got these up at Summit. The gauge itself, I don't remember what company it is. I'll look it up and throw it up on screen here, but 82304, and then the sending unit ACDelco D8034. So it says it'll work. We'll try to swap it out here and see if we can get that going, because it'd be nice to have oil pressure. It's not quite the same font and all that as the ones that are already in here, but it's close enough. I can get one that matched better, but it was like double the price, so that'll do. It's kind of hard to see, but the oil pressure sending unit is right down there. Bring that light a little closer. And it was the old analog style with basically a little tube coming up here, but it's been crushed and melted, so I'm just gonna put a electric one in there and call it a day. It's about 3/8 old style off of here. I'm hoping that the new one will just thread right in there. I won't have to get any adapters or anything. See, it's just a little oil tube. Bottom part down here seems to be 7/16. I can't get the wrench on it. Luckily the other day I got some of these little short handle ratchets. So here's the bottom part, and then set this up. As you can see, it's just kind of threads down in there and seals it off. Oil goes up through there and to your gauge, and tells your oil pressure. So theoretically now, a new one should just screw right in there. Just double check, compare them. Look to be about the same thread there. So, see if we can get this down in there. The distributor it's a little in the way here. And actually it might be a lot in the way to get this threaded in there, because the terminal kind of wants to go in the same area the distributor is. I had to run to Summit and get a little 45 adapter here. There's the Dakota Digital 130070. So we'll see, that should be able to get it in there, and then let this kind of stick out of the way so it's not under that distributor. There's also the problem of the little lip here was hitting the intake manifold. So this should get out of the way for that too. It can be either 45 or 90, but I think 45 should work for what I'm doing. It's gonna need some Teflon tape on there, but as you see that trip up there, it's something about to settle on me here, so I'm just gonna get it in, make sure it fits, and then if it does, I'll pull it back out, throw some Teflon tape on there, and we're gonna have to come back later anyway to finish it off, so we'll see. Hopefully this will get it. There we go. That little piece in there, then I can put this really wherever I need to. Well, that should work. I'll get out of the way, run the wire off there up through the same hole that the little tube came out of before, back to the gauge, and then I'll have to run power to the gauge, but that's a problem for another time, because right now it's about to get dark, so I just want to make sure that'll work. Good morning. We're back out here working on the CJ again. It's been about a week since the last clip of this video. I think today's going to be the day we're going to get that oil pressure there all wrapped up. Just got to pull that one out and throw some Teflon tape on it first, and then we can start the tighten it all up and start the wiring, which really shouldn't be too bad. I have to figure out where I can pull power off the ignition wire in here, so I may have to pull that apart a little bit, but we'll figure it out. Alright, get that tightened up 2 more full turns. So you can get this oil pressure sitting unit on here. tighten that up. I guess it's really only gonna be able to do by hand, because it's not a good place on there to tighten it up. Really, I like to get it so that plug there is towards the top, although really there, now it's up. Just had to bend a little bit. Now I can start figuring out the wiring. So I got the gauge here. Unfortunately, it got a little bit of water in it because I had it sitting out here, then the storm came through and all that, but it is what it is. We'll try to get that water out of there somehow, and worst case scenario, I'll go get another one, I guess. But anyway, I'm gonna get this one wired up here. So we're dealing with is this diagram here. So we got a yeah. So A is for wire to the ignition, so that one. B is to the sending unit, that we'll load up that one. And then C is for ground if the lighting is desired. The good thing is I have been wanting to take this column apart anyway, because you shouldn't be able to just do that. So we can fix that while we're here, maybe, or at least figure out what's wrong. I guess the question now is, how in the world do you take these things apart? After doing a bit more research, I decided that that's a bit more of a can of worms that I want to get into today. So I'm going to look around under here for a ignition wire somewhere that I can tap into. All kinds of harnesses and nests and, you know, just your normal stuff. So I'll look around for a minute and try to figure out what's going on here and come up with a game plan. Well, I was going to leave it alone, but there's so much of a rat's nest going on down here. I think I need to pull that apart just so I can kind of figure out what wires actually go into there. So I guess pull it apart anyway. I'm going to skip past all this here. Thought to get the wheel off for about 3 hours or so and had to run in town for parts. Saw a, where is that? Somewhere up in here. Need a little Ford Econoline there, but that's about it. Saved by some time here. Ended up, I think that steering column is for a for 80 to 85 model truck, not for CJ. And basically decided that it wasn't going to work. So yeah, we'll just scrap that and go with the next plan. What I'm going to do, I was kind of thinking about it anyway, go into a keyless start, ignition switches and all that, because there's a whole mess of wiring going on in there and it's not done right. It works, but there's all kinds of dangling ends that the whole fuse panel there that's not doing anything, and check none of those have power. I'm going to set that up right later. I'm going to go to a keyless ignition then with just switches instead of having to worry about keys and all. And I'll probably have a kill switch I can take out with me. Worry about that later. For now, I'm just going to take one of these switches here and make that a basically an old pressure gauge switch. It'll work in the meantime, because this still works. It's just, you know, kind of janky. But I've got bigger problems to tackle. I just want to make sure that this thing has good oil pressure before we dig into it too much, you know? On second thought, maybe I'll order a few more of these. I can't even get those bolts to come out. They're just so rusted. So we'll just put one of these little guys I got on hand here. I'll get a few more actual toggle switches like that. But so this will work for testing purposes, which is really all we're doing right now. All right, getting this gauge all wired up here. They've got these little kind of isolator pieces. It's like washers pretty much. They go between the your connector and the housing here on the ignition side and the ground side. Or sorry, the ignition side and the sensor side. The ground side just straight to the body there. And I think I'd also misspoke earlier. For the ignition, for the sender, and that's ground, but also, and if lighting is desired. Not ground for your light, but ground for the thing, and also your light if you do use it. So you still have to connect it either way. Let me just finish getting this wired up, and then we'll test it out. Well, it's doing something, because when I click the switch on, it maxes out there, so I guess we'll fire it up and see if it reads. Kind of a weird way to start a vehicle here, but it's gonna take a second because there's barely any fuel in that filter, so it's gonna need to reprime. I'm gonna start it with the switch off and then I'll kick it on. So we'll see here. Filling up back there. We're running, and now we kick that on. Oh. That's still staying up toward the top there. Although it's a little bit lower than it was a second ago. Let Jeep warm up for a second first. Yeah, because with the Jeep off, it's way over 80. But with it running, comes back down to about 75-ish pounds of oil pressure. I'm gonna go do some research. That just seems like too much oil pressure there. And I'm thinking possibly this gauge isn't right for the sending unit, even though it's supposed to be. I'm gonna do some research, figure out, because if it's looking for, you know, different ohms it's actually getting, if it's, say, I don't know how they work exactly, but if it's looking for something different than it's actually seeing, then it's going to read that it's really high, but it may not be. All right, I went to Summit and got this Stewart Warner pressure sender unit here. From my research, it looks like most likely that AC Doco unit is 0 to 90 ohms, whereas this one should be the proper like 33.5 to 240 ohms. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. The specs for that AC Doco unit aren't listed anywhere that I could find online, so I'm going by some forum posts, people with similar engines talking about their, you know, factory gauges and whatnot. They're talking about that 0 to 90 ohms, so hopefully I'll swap this in and it'll read something reasonable. But yeah, this is Stewart Warner 279A, so we'll try it out, and if it works, cool.